In the quiet hours of March 6, 1987, the roll-on/roll-off passenger and cargo ferry, the Herald of Free Enterprise, prepared for its regular crossing from Zeebrugge, Belgium, to Dover, England. It was a routine journey for the vessel, operated by Townsend Thoresen, a prominent name in cross-channel transport. On board were 80 crew members and 459 passengers, including families returning home and individuals beginning their holidays. The conditions were calm, the sea placid, offering no hint of the nightmare that was about to unfold, a disaster that would etch itself into maritime history as a stark lesson in engineering and human fallibility. At 6:05 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, the Herald of Free Enterprise began to pull away from rebirth. The procedure was standard, a stern-first maneuver out of the shallow harbor, followed by a turn to port. This particular RORO ferry was designed for quick loading and unloading through both bow and stern doors, a feature that significantly improved efficiency and turnaround times in busy ports like Zeebrugge. However, this very efficiency also introduced unique vulnerabilities, particularly if operational protocols were not meticulously followed. The ship began to gain speed, heading towards the open sea, completely unaware that a critical lapse had occurred moments before departure. The critical mistake that sealed the Herald's fate was shockingly simple: the bow doors, essential for maintaining the vessel's watertight integrity, remained open. In the rush of a late departure, an assistant bosun, who was supposed to close them, had fallen asleep. A junior officer, assigned to verify their closure, tragically failed to do so, possibly due to confusion over his duties. And the first officer, from the bridge, visually checking the doors through a CCTV monitor, misinterpreted the view. A chain of individual oversights, each seemingly minor on its own, would combine to create a perfect storm of failure, turning a design feature into a deadly flaw. As the Herald accelerated and turned, seawater began to pour through the open bow doors, directly onto the vehicle deck. The initial flow was subtle, perhaps unnoticed amidst the noise and vibration of a departing ship. However, as the ferry picked up speed, the effect became dramatic. The bow wave, a mound of water pushed ahead of a moving vessel, began to flood the open deck at an alarming rate. It was a critical design vulnerability of RORO vessels' vast, unobstructed car decks. Without internal watertight compartments, water could spread across the entire deck area with terrifying speed. The presence of a large, free-moving body of water on a ship's deck is catastrophic due to what engineers call the free surface effect. When a ship rolls, the water on deck sloshes to the lower side, acting like a massive, uncontrolled weight. This shifting mass reduces the ship's metacentric height, a crucial measure of its initial stability. Imagine carrying a tray of water. If the water is in many small compartments, it's stable. If it's a single, large pool, any tilt causes the water to rush to one side, exacerbating the tilt and making the tray much harder to balance. This principle applies violently to a ship. As more water flooded the car deck, the free surface effect intensified. The Herald's stability was rapidly diminishing, unbeknownst to most on board. The water, unimpeded by bulkheads or watertight subdivisions on the vast vehicle deck, quickly spread, creating an enormous, shifting lake. Within minutes of departure, the ship began to list heavily to port. This wasn't a slow, gentle tilt, it was a sudden, violent loss of balance. The sheer volume of water, combined with the momentum of the moving ship, transformed the Herald from a stable vessel into an unstable, top-heavy behemoth teetering on the edge of disaster. The terrifying speed of the capsizing was unprecedented. Barely 4 minutes after accelerating to sea speed, the Herald of Free Enterprise lurched dramatically to port. The shift was so sudden and severe that passengers and crew had little to no warning. Anything unsecured was thrown across the ship. At 6:28 p.m., just 23 minutes after leaving the dock, the ship rolled completely onto its port side. The shallow waters of Zeebrugge harbor, ironically, prevented it from sinking entirely, allowing the starboard side to remain above the waterline. But for those trapped inside, the horror was just beginning, as the cold seawater rushed in. The immediate aftermath was chaotic and tragic. Of the 539 people on board, 193 lost their lives. Many were trapped in submerged cabins or public areas, succumbing to hypothermia in the frigid North Sea waters. The shallow depth meant the ship rested on its side, but large sections were completely flooded. Rescuers faced immense challenges, battling against time and the perilous conditions inside the inverted hull. The disaster underscored the extreme vulnerability of RRO passenger ships once their integrity is breached, and highlighted the devastating consequences when basic safety protocols are ignored. A public inquiry into the disaster was immediately launched, led by Mr. Justice Sheen. The findings were scathing, pointing to a culture of negligence and systemic failures within Townsend Thoresen. The report concluded that the immediate cause was the failure to close the bow doors. However, it went further, exposing a pervasive disease of sloppiness throughout the company, from the assistant bosun to senior management. The inquiry highlighted a severe lack of clear communication, inadequate safety procedures, and a systemic failure to address known vulnerabilities in the RRO design. It was a condemnation not just of individuals, but of an entire organizational ethos. The inquiry meticulously detailed the operational protocol failures. There was no single crew member explicitly tasked with ensuring the bow doors were closed and secured after loading. The telltale indicator lights on the bridge, designed to show if the doors were shut, were considered unreliable by the crew and often ignored. Furthermore, the bridge crew's view of the doors was obscured by the ship's bow, making visual confirmation difficult. The reliance on manual checks, without adequate redundancy or a culture of rigorous adherence to safety, created a fatal gap in the ship's operational safety net, a critical error for such a vulnerable vessel. Beyond operational errors, the inquiry also brought into sharp focus a fundamental design vulnerability of RRO ferries, the vast, undivided vehicle decks. These open-plan spaces allowed for quick vehicle loading but, crucially, offered no watertight subdivision to prevent water from spreading. Unlike other ship types with multiple watertight compartments designed to contain flooding, the RRO design was inherently susceptible to the free surface effect once water entered the main car deck. This design choice, prioritizing efficiency over resilience, was a major contributing factor to the rapid loss of stability and the scale of the disaster. The horrific loss of life and the damning inquiry findings ignited a global demand for radical changes in RRO vessel safety. It became clear that incremental adjustments would not suffice. The industry and regulatory bodies were forced to confront the inherent dangers of the RRO design, particularly the free surface effect on car decks. Pressure mounted for fundamental redesigns and far more stringent operational procedures. The disaster served as a brutal, undeniable wake-up call, demonstrating that human error, combined with design vulnerability, could lead to catastrophic consequences even in seemingly routine maritime operations. In response to the Herald of Free Enterprise tragedy, the International Maritime Organization, or IMO, swiftly introduced significant amendments to the Safety of Life at Sea, or SALAS, Convention. These amendments specifically addressed the stability requirements for RRO passenger ships. A key change was the mandatory installation of indicator systems on the bridge, showing the status of all shell doors, including bow and stern ramps, and an audible alarm if they were open while the ship was underway. These systems had to be robust and reliable, ensuring that bridge officers could accurately monitor critical safety aspects. Perhaps the most radical changes concerned stability. Post-Herald, RRO ships were mandated to improve their stability, particularly in damaged conditions. This included stricter requirements for subdividing the vehicle decks. New regulations called for the installation of transverse bulkheads or flaps on vehicle decks, designed to prevent the unrestricted spread of water. While these could impede rapid loading and unloading, they were deemed essential to mitigate the free surface effect and provide crucial time for evacuation or damage control in the event of flooding, fundamentally altering the trade-off between efficiency and safety. Beyond technical changes, the disaster spurred a significant shift in operational culture across the global maritime industry. There was a renewed emphasis on robust safety management systems, comprehensive crew training, and a clear chain of command regarding safety responsibilities. The days of sloppiness were replaced with stricter audit regimes and a focus on fostering a proactive safety culture from the deck plate to the boardroom. The Herald tragedy forced companies to re-evaluate their entire approach to safety, recognizing that human factors are as critical as engineering in preventing catastrophic failures at sea. The Herald of Free Enterprise tragedy remains a poignant reminder of how a seemingly simple mistake can cascade into a catastrophic maritime disaster when combined with inherent design vulnerabilities and systemic operational failings. The free surface effect, once a theoretical concern, became a grim reality for 193 souls. However, from this immense sorrow emerged a stronger, safer maritime industry. The radical changes in RORO vessel design and safety regulations worldwide, born from this disaster, have undoubtedly prevented countless similar tragedies, ensuring that the lessons learned from the Herald continue to protect lives at sea.